Hey guys, quick edit before the video begins. I want to say thank you all for supporting the channel and the surprising explosion of views on my last video, the M1 Abrams in action War Thunder 1.77 dev server video, which at the time of the making of this video has 435 views and 10 likes in less than 24 hours. I am just blown away of how the views have just exploded. I am just grateful for all your support, and if you haven't already, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and tell your friends about this channel. Help us grow, and thank you for watching. Howdy folks, Sauber here. That is right. Do you see that guy beside me? The one I'm staring at? That is PhlyDaily, aka Philip J. Phly. This was filmed on the second 1.77 dev server, which was released between March 10 and March 11 of 2018. How did I find Phly? You see, I was tired of playing matchmaker battles on the dev server, so I thought I would look for a custom battle. Well, I kid you not, the first battle I see has Phly's name on it as the host. So I'm like, shoot, I get to play with Phly. So I join, and sure enough, he was there. Because he had a few other custom battles what he was hosted, but he was not in those. I got to play with him for a little over 2 hours. In this video, I showcase about 20 minutes of the best gameplay I was able to film, which also removed glitchy parts from the server. There is a little bit of the video where you get to see where the dev server derped out a bit, but I'll just let you wait and see, and you'll see what I mean. That needs no explanation, just visual. Anyhow, yes, my old rule about recording replays, not live gameplays, for performance reasons, as well as me not knowing which battle will be good or bad. However, that still applies. But I do make an exception for the dev server, knowing it could be closed at any time for various reasons. So that is why I was recording live with PhlyDaily. Little highlight from last video, I now realize I was saying Bundeswehr wrong. I was pronouncing it Bundeswehr, not Bundeswehr. Also, you might be wondering, why am I using this orange and white camo? That is one of my user skins from one of my old, well, it's not from, this one is not from my pack, but it's based off of an old skin pack I made called the Holowolf skin pack. I will link the original pack in the description below, and I will be releasing a new version of the pack in the near future, which includes this camo, which I specifically made for the Abrams. I might also showcase my user skins in videos like this in the future. Not all of them, but some of them. So, yeah. I got hyped when I saw that I was in the same game with Phly. It sure was fun. And get this, I even got to appear in his Challenger video when he plays on Mozdok. For those of you that are either new to the game or the channel, you might wonder, when you see his video, you see my decals, my Paula decal, my PhlyDaily decal, my 7-Eleven decal, I forget what the other decal is called, the red, blue, and yellow triangle, the US Army insignia. Why you see those, but not my camo? Well, you see, user skins, ever since they were introduced in 2014, both for planes and tanks, simply do not show up for other players. If you're using a skin, only you can see it. To put it simply, that is done to prevent abuse, like, for example, players making user skins with explicit content, and also for performance reasons, which, for example, suppose you have an 8K skin, which is like, I don't know, 50 megabytes, and you multiply that by 16, well, 32, if you're doing a 16 by 16 game, assuming each player is using a high quality or any user skin, that would take a while to load, even if the risk of explicit user skins was non-existent. So that is why when you watch my video, you see my user skin here, but not in Phly's. So let's go ahead and get started on discussing the new 9.0 MBTs. Well, not all of them are 9.0. The Leopard 2K, for example, is 8.7. But why I'm not too worried about their introduction at 9.0. I know, and I've heard a few notable YouTubers, and I'm sure you've heard them too, express concern and even rant and trash talk War Thunder about the new 9.0 MBTs. I know, I can't really understand why they have to bash them so much about things that are still in development and are subject to change. But anyway, like the Abrams T-64, Challenger, and so on. The thing is, these are the same people, with no pun intended, that were crying wolf over the AMX-13 SS11 when it came out, well, when it was still on the dev server, saying it would be trash and such, it would not be worth buying, get a refund. Well, get this. Some players like myself bought it, the AMX-13 SS11, and were able to play it just fine. Sure, it did take a bit of a learning curve. For example, that getting used to the missiles being WASD guided, if you were in realistic battles, and that the gun had no stabilizer. But nevertheless, I was able to make good use of it, and I played it up till Tier 4 French ground forces, and by that time, my interest went back to the Rank 6 MBTs in preparation for 1.77. To deviate a little, I don't know what happened here. Either Phly went AFK and left the cruise control on, or he was bugging out. Because as you'll see in a little bit, wait for it, right here. I guess he got disconnected. It was so weird. But that's the dev server for you. It can be unstable because, as you know, it's for testing purposes. It's much more unstable than the live server. Now, going back on topic in regards to the 9.0 tanks, as you'll soon see, they're not invincible. They can be penned by lower tier tanks from the front or the side, especially the side. Challenger 1, for example, can be penned by wait for it, a Panzer IV F2 from the front via lower plate. Why? The lower front plate is only 70 millimeters thick. I mean, I understand it was, in real life, it was intended to be a hull down tank, but nonetheless, that's pretty weak. There is a little bit of chaw bomb armor hanging off the top of the... Sorry, that sounded weird. That covers some of the lower plate at the top, but not all of it. The M1 Abrams can be sniped, and I've witnessed this firsthand because it happened to me. I was so mad. I was like, Are you kidding me? I was sniped from the front by a ZSU-57 with its twin 57mm aiming for below my turret into the weak spot just above the driver's hatch. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure like a KV-2 could also snipe me there too. The Leopard 2K can be penned from anywhere, or any place that is, that has no composite armor by, say, 4.0 BR tanks. The T-64B no longer has the somewhat invincible upper plate that it once had in the previous dev server. And watch this. I'm using the stock APFSDS shell, which is on the M60 Rise. Wait for it. Penetrate lower plate, no problem. Aim for just the side. He's angled at the wrong... Or he's angled just a little bit, and that's just enough for me to get a good shot, and he goes kaboom. Anyhow, going back to the T-64B, the upper front plate is no longer 480mm effective thickness for kinetic. It's now 440, which I'll explain that in detail in just a moment. It also has a fairly weak side armor which can be penetrated by, say, a Panther. It also has a weak spot that's shared by the T-64A just above the driver port. And the lower front plate can be penetrated by most 8.0 tanks and below. I once got killed in my T-64A via the lower plate from a shot that came from an M103. Bear in mind, this was the stock AP shell. So yeah, it can be done. It's possible for current 9.0 and 8.0 tanks to defeat the new 9.0s from the front. Is it easy? Well, it depends on what round you're using. Can it be done? Yes. In this regard, or my 2 cents in this regard, is to simply not jump on something before it goes live. Sometimes the dev server alone is not enough to get a full picture on what content in game, how it will perform, or how it will not perform. They do try their best to assure that the tanks, within all possible limits, can be balanced. You may recall that some of the new tanks got better shells, or had prices changed. I'm talking about you, M1 Abrams. Yes! Thank you, War Thunder. The Tier 4 APFS DS shell, the M774 shot, got reduced from 1,600 Silver Lions to just 520 Silver Lions per shot. Much more practical to use and will help the Abrams out in a battle tremendously. Going back to the T-64, it is now possible to penetrate the T-64B's upper front plate using the Challenger's 120mm L23A1 APFS DS shot, and even the T-64B's own stock 125mm 3BM15 shot, which both those shots, ironically, can penetrate 440mm of armor, which, if at all possible, is very... Sorry, I said that wrong. Which is very possible, if not more than enough, to penetrate the T-64B's upper plate. It can be done easily now. And while its chemical energy effective thickness was increased slightly to 500, that's still not enough to defend from the Leopard 2K stock Heat FS shell, which can penetrate 650mm of armor. Ha, perfect timing. So as you see here, that's when we somehow got despawned. And when we tried to spawn in, I don't know if this affected anybody else, but no one else was moving. I could move, but no one else could. Phly later told us to return to hangar, but we couldn't. The only way I could go back was to quit the game. I restarted the game, pressed Alt F4, and then logged back in. And it was fine afterwards. But that's just the dev server for you. So now that we covered the part about the new MBTs, let's move on to another subject that I would like to discuss that I highlighted a little bit on the last video, but now I will give more detail. That is the subject of large maps in War Thunder ground forces. I say they are a huge step in the right direction, especially with the new rank 6 tanks introduced. Or let me rephrase that, with the new ones that we're getting in 1.77. With the recent introduction of the European Provenience map and the Surroundings of Volokolamsk map, now the Rank 6 ground forces have huge playgrounds to play on. There may be some other large maps, but I'm especially loving the European Provenance map. I did play a little bit on Surroundings of Volokolamsk, but I don't have any footage of that. With the capability of shooting accurately over 1500 meters, it is important to have large maps available to assure that they have more breathing room. Deviating a little, I don't know if my voice traveled over that, but you notice that the commander says "load Sabo" instead of "load Sabo." I guess that's how you see it in British English, Sabo instead of Sabo. Let me know in the comments below, but I thought that was so funny when I first heard that was "load Sabo." They're trying to sound American and they say Sabo instead of "load Sabo." But that's just me. Anyway, back on topic. I'm very grateful to have such large maps available to us Rank 6 Ground Forces players now. I would like to discuss briefly on what maps I would like to see not only get a facelift, that is, be made bigger, but also the return of some maps that I have not seen in Matchmaker for a long time, including some of my old favorites. I'll try to cover each map as briefly as possible to allow for as many maps as possible to be mentioned. Granted, I can't mention all of them, but here we go. Let's start with the map I used to enjoy very much until they either removed it from Matchmaker altogether or simply made it less common. I don't know, you be the judge. White Rock Fortress. That map kind of gave you, I don't know if, how can I put it? It's like a castle run inside of a maze. There was cover everywhere on the castle grounds. It was excellently balanced, aside from the little sniper towers that you could get on, but it wasn't all that bad from what I recall. It was possible to lie in wait and fire on your foes who would dare pass you. It was a small map compared to other Ground Forces maps, but was still fun to play nonetheless. The last time I recall playing on White Rock Fortress in an MM battle was during an SB event that back in 1.67 whilst playing as the Leopard 1. I can't remember if it was the A1A1 or just the standard Leopard 1. I have not seen that map since in a in a Matchmaker battle. How it could return? I do recall a large version of the map back in 2014 or 15. While I don't recall the exact size of the map, I do recall one side having to cross a bridge in order to get into the main battlefield area. Next map, Jungle. I used to like the Jungle map for a long time until I suddenly stopped seeing it in the Matchmaker rotation. It had a nice hill for the southern spawn, where you could play as an ATGM, a Rakitan Jagdpanzer, for example, and snipe anyone trying to go for the cap point in complete safety. You only had to worry about planes carrying rockets. This was back before the rockets got their nerf. There's also an unused northern, southern, and western part of the map where there is a little bit of map detail, but it is either inaccessible because it says return to battlefield, or it is blocked by anti-tank barricades. Those areas of the map could easily be extended. Now we're going to talk about some maps that either had a large version at one point, but later is no longer playable, the large version I mean, or are capable of having a large version, but has not yet been made. Poland. I do recall a break version of the map where it was about the size of Kursk, if not larger. I recall it took about 5 minutes going 25 miles an hour to get from the spawn to the city from the northwestern spawn. And to deviate a little, this is the part where in Phly's video, you see me and his teammates towing him to safety. It felt good doing that, and sadly he didn't show this in his video, but as you'll soon see, or actually you might have saw in the intro, he also towed me to safety when I got hit, and I didn't know I could still reverse. And so he tows me, and I'm like, oh, I guess I could move. But it was still nice getting towed by him. I towed him, he towed me. Back on topic. Poland was large, or this version of Poland I'm talking about was large and possible to snipe enemies from 1500 meters away. It had varied terrain from hills to flat fields. it accompanied the now unused northwest part of the map, as well as what we now know as what, or let me rephrase that, the southern part of the Poland map, which we now know as the Fields of Poland map, where it focuses on the southern part of Poland, where the northern part of Poland, that is the city part, is inaccessible in that version of the map. With the recent change to the map to help cut down on Sniper Hill, where it was possible to unfairly snipe enemies spawning in the east part of the map, whilst sitting on the hill just a part of the eastern part of the lake, thankfully that has been made much harder, and I don't know if it's been completely eradicated, or excuse me, eliminated, but nonetheless it is much difficult to snipe your enemies in that area now, so it's more balanced. Thank you, War Thunder, for reading my bug report on that, and the reason it was considered a bug report because it was an unfair advantage. You couldn't do the same on the if you spawned in the east and tried to snipe the west, because they had a protected hill. Now the east gets a protected hill. Now next map, Port Novo. I can't pronounce the full name of that map, unlike Volokolamsk, but there are a few versions of Port Novo which take place on different parts of the map. It is fully capable of being played on the full version of the map, and I would certainly like to see a full version of this map. Mozdok. Mozdok is a fairly large map. I once found a custom battle that was hosting a larger version of the map via a custom map, which is only available in custom battles. It was fun to play. It accompanied the largest possible version of the map, which included some unused portion of the map, which have detail. Kursk. Kursk is a similar story with Mozdok. It's large, has some unused, detailed areas, which could be used in battles. Granted, there would have to be bridges placed so you could cross the river. But other than that, there's not much more to say about it. Normandy. One of my favorite, all-time favorite maps for arcade domination. It has two save points, one in the west, one in the east, one for each side, and has a easily contested center point right in the middle of town. There is a southern version of the map called Fields of Normandy, where it is possible we could have a supersized version of the map which accompanies both versions of the map, with even more room for expansion. The possibilities are endless. Sinai. Sinai has two versions, with being small, focusing on the northeast part of the map, and the other being large, which accompanies most of the western part of the map. Why not combine both? It would be interesting to make a full use of the high part of Sinai to the east, while also trying to control the North Highlands, which are unused at this time. And last, but certainly not least, Middle East. Middle East can be expanded easily. Of all maps I've mentioned so far, I would especially like to see an expansion of this map. There is room both north and west of the map to make it bigger. If War Thunder wants to, they could also add a more town area to the north and west to make it more urban. It would also be more fitting given the release of the new 9.0 MBTs and 1.77. That is it. Thanks for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this discussion. I had a great time playing with Phly. Be sure to check out both of our channels, and until next time, have a great day. Peace out.
Prepare!